Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Peach State Payments. Ethical processing, more profit, less stress. Chiro HD, more than an EHR. Practice management simplified. Recover, new revenue, no compromise. Cool Blue VA, your virtual assistant. The Chiro speaking company. Attract, educate, and convert. Chiro Spring, cloud-based, user-friendly software with all the essential features chiropractors need. OmniWave, redefining comfort and acoustic wave technology. The Chiro Hustle Podcast is sponsored by Chiro Health USA, ChiroScript AI, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, 5-Star Forge, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 695 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Vince Kalkowski. If you want to hear about how he found chiropractic as a kid and how it led him into Palmer Rugby, stay tuned for the full episode. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. Today I have Vince Kalkowski coming on up in Wyoming, and I'm down here in Colorado. It's going to be a cool story. We both got our roots with Palmer Rugby. Really excited to share his story about how he got into chiropractic as a kid. Really, it's a really courageous thing that happened in his life where he didn't know where to go, and chiropractic helped him. We're also going to talk about some of his mentors, and the big thing we're going to riff on today is where's the profession going? And before we jump into his story of how he got into chiropractic, we're going to tell you our big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Well, first things first is freedom of speech. I think that's integral to journalism, and that's what we do over here with podcasting. It's just modern day journalism. But we know what it's like to be traffic throttled, and we know what it's like to be shadow banned and censored, and we'd never do it to you. We also believe in medical freedom and family health freedom. If you guys need help with that, go find a chiropractor in your city. If you're looking for one in Cody, Wyoming, go reach out to Dr. Vince.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you know, we also believe in protecting BJ Palmer's sacred trust. It's BJ Palmer's last written words. If you guys don't know what that means, go to our show notes, click on the sacred trust. You're going to learn more about chiropractic than you ever did before, I guarantee you. It's really profound. We also believe in subluxation-based chiropractic. I know I shouldn't have to go down this path, but they're removing some of the lexicon from the chiropractic colleges, and they're removing chiropractic philosophy from some of the chiropractic colleges, or they're reducing it greatly. So if you know a chiropractor that's been out a couple of years or a chiropractic student, please share the show with them and teach them about subluxation and teach them about innate intelligence and universal intelligence and educated intelligence. We believe that when man or woman, the physical gets adjusted, it connects man, the physical, or woman, the physical, to man or woman, the spiritual. And that's educated intelligence at the outset. So we go from innate, universal, educated. And we believe that if nobody listens to anything else that Vince and I talk about today, you guys got the big idea. So with that, this is episode 695 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. And this is Dr. Vince. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, James.
Yeah, it's always good to kick up some dust on hearing some stories. And boy, this bear story that we're going to close out with today, you guys don't want to jump off now. Stay to the end of this. But getting into how you got into chiropractic, I didn't know any of this until I started like digging into your website. But you were 11 or 12 and you got injured?
Correct.
So tell us about that, like early exposure into chiropractic.
Okay. So I got injured on my dirt bike. And long story short, we both kind of fell. I was trying to climb a cliff. It didn't work out. And we both ended up falling down the cliff. I landed before the bike did, and I hit my feet, went clear to my butt. And then the motorcycle landed on my head and just bent me into I think I kissed my belly button. But it ended up giving me a T6 and T7 compression fracture. along with, I had a concussion and some chipped teeth. And so obviously my back hurt. And, and one of the things when I got my dirt bike, my dad told me that he thought I was smart enough to own one. And so that night when I got home from riding, I didn't tell him exactly the truth, because I was pretty sure if I did, he'd say, I guess I was wrong, and take my dirt bike away. So my dirt bike was fairly important to me. So I made up a story that kind of downplayed my injury or what happened. Man, my back just, it just, how compression fractures are. They hurt, and they hurt for a long time, and they just don't go away with much treatment when they're healing. And finally, after a while, it started feeling a little bit better, but the back pain never went away. And then as chiropractors now, we can all imagine that if they got, if the forces were great enough to create 2 compression fractures, there was probably also some misalignment, some subluxation complex established, and there was. And, I didn't know anything about that. My parents didn't know anything about that. And unfortunately, the medical doctors I was dealing with didn't know anything about that, because it wasn't just back pain. So that was about 7th grade that the accident happened. And by about 9th grade, like I said, the acute back pain was better, but my back still hurt. And I had developed some really weird autonomic type symptoms, headaches, and really weird thing with eggs. If I ate scrambled eggs in the morning, which is one of the things I loved, it would make me sick. By second period at work, or at school, I'd get like tunnel vision, start feeling nauseated, lightheaded, sweaty, and then this big old headache. And then it started happening that I'd kind of get that set of symptoms even without eating eggs, just randomly. And so back to the medical doctor we'd go. His back still hurts. Now he's having this weird headache, sick connection with eggs, and sometimes without eggs. And you can imagine, a medical doctor, a GP, looking at that going, boy, I don't know. So painkillers, tried some injection, some cortisone injections in the area of T6, T7 where my pain was. And that would make my back feel better for a short period of time. But the last time I went in for a set of injections, I don't know what happened. They gave me the injections, the cortisone injections, and for some reason I fainted right there on the table. I passed out. And when I woke up, I was all hot and sweaty, kind of that same headachy, sweaty, nauseated feeling. And I got done, went out to the car. My mom picked me up, and she's like, how'd it go? And I just said, not good. I said, this isn't working. I'm not going to do those anymore. And she's like, why? What happened? I told her, I said, for some reason I fainted, passed out. It's just not worth it anymore to do these. And so that night at dinner, my mom was just almost crying the whole time, just wondering why I wasn't getting better and what was wrong with me. And my dad finally said, maybe we should try a chiropractor. And he recalled a motocross deal where he had overjumped a jump on the old bikes and landed out on the flats and compressed his neck. And gosh, he had medical doctors wanting to do surgery, and he was driving 3 hours to go to a physical therapy place here in Wyoming that did traction, and it would give him a little bit of short-term relief. And a guy at work talked him into going to a chiropractor. And he said, I don't know why we didn't think of this before. He said that 2 or 3 visits to that chiropractor guy's place, and I was fixed. He said, I knew the second that guy popped my neck, sorry for the pop your neck verbiage, but that's what he said. He said, I knew the second he did that he was kind of on the right track. And so within the next couple of days, we got an appointment at a chiropractor's office in Casper, Wyoming, where I grew up. And well, I'm sorry, James, it was actually a physical therapist. If I'm being honest. He was a renegade physical therapist back then. This would have been 84, 85. But he was helping one of my dad's friends at work, and he was manipulating spines as a physical therapist back then. And he ended up getting in trouble for it, but not before he got to me. And as much as he didn't know, it's kind of a cool part of the story in a way, because looking back on it now as a chiropractor, he didn't know what the heck he was doing. He did anterior thoracic adjustments on me, and that's it. But I'm telling you, as soon as he did that first anterior thoracic adjustment in the T6, 7 area, 7, 8,
boom.
Oh my gosh. When I felt that release, I mean, I didn't know for sure what to think. At first, I'm thinking this guy broke my back. And the next fraction of the second, I'm thinking, that was it. That was it. And then I started saying that. I kept looking at my dad and going, Dad, that was it. That was it. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, that's what I needed. I can tell. And I was looking at that guy. I was like, how'd you know how to do that? And he was like, well, it's just kind of something I've been working on. And, and I was like, that was it. And he's like, well, hold on. We have more to do. I need to finish looking at your spine. I don't even think he adjusted my neck. It changed my life. I mean, the guy didn't even know what he was doing. And that adjustment changed my life. It improved my symptoms dramatically and almost instantaneously. And I knew at that point, I knew there was an answer. And eventually we kind of figured out that that's what chiropractors do. And I got to a chiropractor, and that's when I started learning more about chiropractic and actually seeing what it looked like to be adjusted by a chiropractor that knew what he was doing. And it literally gave me my life back.
Yeah, that's really why I wanted to open up with that story, because I'm sure that gave you some compassion as you decided that you're like, you know what? I want to help people just like this.
100%. 100%. I had all kinds of questions for that when I finally got to the chiropractor. I'm like, why didn't the medical doctors tell me to go do this? And he explained to me a little bit about the politics. He was a Palmer grad and a long time ago, but he kind of filled me in on the politics, and it kind of aggravated me a bit. As a young idealistic kid, it's like, you got to be kidding me. This treatment's out there, and it was the fix for me. And all the, at that point in my life, I thought medical doctors were the experts. Period.
Well, Vince, that's why today people are still sick and suffering. They don't know about chiropractic.
I agree.
The 11,000 new patients that I've scheduled in, over 800 screen events. I can't tell you how many times I talk to somebody and they say the same thing. They frustrated you. Why didn't anybody tell me about this? And then I had to start digging into the politics of different professional mindsets.
Yeah.
And I had to start understanding about the medical profession and how they would not be vindicated to share information about a chiropractor. And they wouldn't do that because they were afraid of their licensing. Like a medical doctor would not refer because of like a code of ethics, because they were told not to.
That was explained.
That's why back in the day, what we're calling today, like this whole world that we're in, we call it groupthink. Well, back then the groupthink was, do not refer to a chiropractor if you're in the medical profession. And that was a part of the AMAs contained and eliminate chiropractic through quackery. So that type of system was still in play when you were a young man. And that's why no one ever told you. And that's
Absolutely.
why you were frustrated. You're like, well, if you guys had this going on, why ain't you all sharing this?
Yeah.
And now today, the same thing. Like I still meet people out there that are said, why didn't anybody tell me about that? If I got adjusted, it would help my organ system. Why didn't anybody ever tell me that if I get adjusted, it would help my glandular system? Why didn't anybody ever tell me that it would help my nervous system? And why didn't anybody ever tell me that it would help with my headaches and my neck pain and my back pain? Like, why didn't anybody ever tell me it would help with my posture related deficiencies? Like, I get this stuff all the time, and I'm sure you have too after being a chiropractor for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah. And and you're right that my experience definitely helps me relate to how the patients are feeling when they come to that realization.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they tell you, why didn't anybody ever tell me about this? And then you're like, well, I you have to be the one that presents to them that this is why the medical industry needs some reform.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And how people should be referring to chiropractors first rather than the pills, potions, and lotions route.
Absolutely.
I
like that.
So then when you get better, well, I interviewed this guy named Les Brown a handful of years ago. He's a luminary professional speaker. And he impacted me, non-chiropractor. He impacted me because he said, I like chiropractors because they don't cut it out, they don't drug it out, and they don't burn it out. They just adjust you.
So true.
And I was like, I am always going to remember that. And I'm always going to share that because that sums up what chiropractic is.
Yeah, I like that.
So easily. So you go in and you get adjusted. You're a teenager. Talk about the next chapter of your life. And then all of a sudden you become an elite rugby player and you go on to Palmer.
Yeah. So I wound up at University of Wyoming, getting my prerequisites and I just kind of, I had plans I wanted to play college soccer. That was pretty tough back in the 80s coming out of Wyoming. It just, for different reasons, and then I also wanted to possibly, I was a Nordic skier in high school, and I wanted to do that at the Division I level at University of Wyoming, and that didn't work out real well. The Norwegians are in fact untouchable, and I found that out directly and resoundingly. So I kind of just didn't have too many options left in terms of sports, and I got one of my best friends I grew up with in Casper he was an accomplished wrestler, and he was playing rugby down in Laramie at University of Wyoming, and just talked me into coming out and learning the game. He thought I'd like it, and he was right. It was awesome. It just incorporated everything: soccer, wrestling, football. I mean, everything I'd ever done, it was all right there in one game. It was amazing. And we had some good coaches at that showed up right about then in Laramie. And we ended up going to the national Final Four for the Division I college division in 1991. And then, once I figured out that I wanted to become a chiropractor and started talking to Palmer, I had no idea that they had a rugby team. And I kept seeing that in their literature, something about a rugby team. And I'm thinking, well, they're a college, and I was just at the National Final Four Division I tournament. I've never heard of these guys. And finally I put the pieces together and actually talked to Fred Harris. He was the athletic director at Palmer at the time. And he explained to me that they're a division above, they're in the men's premier division, Division I. And I was like, oh, wow. And I was like, wow, you guys are competitive in that division? He said, oh, yeah. Yeah. And I said, and you guys have scholarships? He said, yeah, if you're good enough. He said, what's your background? And then when I told him that I played for Wyoming and he had heard of us, he said, well, you guys were just at the Final Four? I said, yeah. And he asked if I was a starter. And I said, yeah, I was a starting fullback. And he's like, holy cow, we're losing our fullback next semester. And he said, yeah. He said, we want you to come out and play. Let's see what you've got. And, he said, all the scholarships are taken up. That was my first trimester. And he said, but we'll see how it goes. If you're, if it works out, maybe you can get a scholarship starting second try. And yeah, it just all worked out, again, kind of God's plan rather than mine. Wasn't my plan
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Peach State Payments, ethical processing, more profit, less stress. Chiro HD, more than an EHR, practice management simplified. Recover, new revenue, no compromise. Cool Blue VA, your virtual assistant. The Chiro Speaking Company, attract, educate, and convert. Chiro Spring, cloud-based, user-friendly software with all the essential features chiropractors need. OmniWave, redefining comfort and acoustic wave technology. The Chiro Hustle Podcast is sponsored by Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, 5-Star Forge, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. Well, I think that Rugby, I don't know if you know the story or not, but David Palmer, he started the Rugby program at Palmer, and that was BJ's son. And the reason we have a global footprint of chiropractors around the world was because of Rugby. I'm sure you played with some of these guys from New Zealand and South Africa and England. What he would do is he would go and recruit the best Rugby players that he could find and train them up to be chiropractors. And that's how, honestly, we have a global profession, was because of Palmer Rugby. And I learned that because I interviewed so many Palmer Rugby guys that eventually the story started coming out. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, Palmer Rugby is a fundamental vehicle for global chiropractic. And I knew that they have always done a great job of recruiting great talent and putting out an awesome rugby club. But the reason that we have chiropractors all around the world now is because of Palmer Rugby.
I've never heard it put that way. That's very interesting.
Yep.
It makes sense.
They want to be competitive in that men's league of rugby. So they're like, well, how do we do this? Well, we have to go recruit people that know how to play this game. So the early years, they recruited guys from all around the world to come to become chiropractors. And then they went back to their home countries, and now we have chiropractic globally.
Yeah, and I knew that story. I knew that that's how it got started, but I guess I never really put that much thought into the fact that that's probably the biggest reason why you say we have a worldwide footprint in chiropractic. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the genesis of chiropractic, there's one college in Davenport, Iowa.
Yeah, absolutely.
And every other college since then happened because of Palmer. And now we have much greater, groups of chiropractors around the world, but early stages, like if you're putting like the soldiers out to become generals of the world, the early chiropractic generals were all Palmer Rugby guys.
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Huh. So how many years you been in practice now?
Oh, geez, since 1995. So,
and you started out right out of college, went to Cody, yeah?
Actually, I went to Casper. I went back to my hometown. That's where I was supposed to go in with that other chiropractor. So yeah, I landed there, and it was going pretty well, but I really did want to be in with another chiropractor, a more experienced chiropractor. And I really wanted to be paying attention to more of how to be a chiropractor, not how to run a business. So I started almost immediately, because I wanted to be a sports-oriented chiropractor, and about the best opportunity in this part of the country was Wrangler was developing a Wrangler sports chiropractic program for PRCA rodeo. So I started going to their stuff, getting certified for that, and then started working PRCA rodeos as a Wrangler sports chiropractor. And that was a lot of fun. And I met another chiropractor that was doing it, a guy that had been in practice longer than me by far, from up here in Cody. And we would work the same rodeos together a lot. And he just told me at one point, he said, look, he said, I'm getting overrun up in Cody. He said, and I don't want to work that hard anymore. He said, I'm going to be bringing somebody in. He said, he said, I'd like to offer it to you. first. He offered me an incredible deal, percentage wise. I was making better percentage back then than I ever have on as a solo chiropractor. And I didn't have to worry about anything. I show up and work and go home. So that's what brought me to Cody. I went ahead and did that. And he ended up getting in a car accident and getting disabled as far as chiropractic goes. And anyway, ended up on my own up here, and it's gone well.
So let's go back. Talk to me about breaking through with these rodeo guys. How challenging was it to provide care to those guys? Because they're the last group that are going to like take care of themselves, aren't they?
Well, when that's their livelihood, and when they have got to get back on, whether it's a bronc or a bareback or bull, they got to get back on. I'd say most of them have the mindset, whatever it takes. And if you're right there, and they like free. So, no, we were busy, man. We'd be busy. That's why they'd have two of us at a lot of the rodeos, because one guy couldn't keep up.
That's a really interesting story. That's a really interesting story, because my perception of rodeo guys they're the last ones to complain, the last ones to tell you anything's a problem. And it's interesting to hear how receptive they were to having a chiropractor take care of them.
Most of them were very, very, very receptive and very willing. They wanted to try about anything. There were a few that, maybe have tried chiropractors like back in their hometown or something, and it made them sore. I can remember there was one in particular that, he did not want to get worked on by a chiropractor, only a physical therapist, because he had been to a chiropractor and made him sore. And I said, I understand, I won't hurt you. I just told him that. I said, if anything, you're going to walk away going, hey, you didn't even do anything. I said, but it's a starting point, because I'd see him probably every third weekend. We'd be at a rodeo. They go off other places, but the circuit always brings them back to Wyoming throughout the summer intermittently. And, so I worked on him. I showed him how we could do things gently. And he got to where he'd trust me, and it helped him. But he was pretty apprehensive at first. But I'll tell you, there weren't that many stories like that. Most of them had really been to a chiropractor back in their hometown or somewhere along the way anyhow.
Well, I mean, being in the rodeo itself, being a part of like the animal life, and people know that they're kicking their own ass, that they have to get somebody to take care of them, and there's no vets around taking care of these people. So they're like, oh, there's a chiropractor. Sure. This hip's been giving me some issues, or this wrist has been giving me some issues, or my shoulder's kind of like out, so I'm sure that they were like, thank you for taking care of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good program. It's kind of a bummer that it didn't take off, and it didn't take off. It's not that it was lacking in its what it offered to the rodeo contestants and the rodeo itself. It was more of a structuring, organizational issue, as you can imagine.
Sure. Well, talking about structural organizational stuff, let's talk about what we think about this chiropractic profession, where we might be going. I think talking about like the season that we're in right now, knowing that we have a new administration coming into our country for leadership, where do you see things going for chiropractic over, say, the next 4 years?
Oh, man, I'll tell you, James, I don't know, because I only hear about what's going on in the big cities. I hear about places like down in Denver. I'll hear about the Joint. I think they've got something similar to that. I don't know if they call it the Joint up in Billings. I don't know. I don't know what to. On one hand, I'm thinking, hey, people are getting adjusted. I don't think there's much education going on at those places. Like you were saying earlier in your intro, I loved how you put all that education about the subluxation complex and its manifestations if not corrected, the implications of that, that's got to be conveyed to the patients, to the world. So I don't know. I honestly, I don't know how much of that's getting done at those at those places. The other thing I hear of, we've had a lot of people move into Cody from bigger cities. And it's really been interesting to me, someone will come in as a new patient from a bigger city somewhere, and I'll do my intake process and exam and everything. And then if it looks appropriate to adjust them, I do. And they're like shocked. They're like, wow, I've never had that done before. And I'm thinking, what do you mean? I just adjusted you. That's all I did. What have you been having done? And usually they'll stretch me and they'll put pressure on some muscles. And I'm thinking, I've asked a few of them, your chiropractor did that, or a physical therapist or massage therapist? No, my chiropractor. And I'm thinking, what the heck's going on out there? I don't know. So when I'm asked where I see the future going, I feel like, I don't know, kind of being where I am up here in Northwest Wyoming, I'm not sure what's going on out there, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And, I'll bounce back to you off of what you shared. And I do think that utilization, because of these franchise models, are going up, just because there's more boxes open for people to go into. Do I know if it's real principle based or corrective based? I think utilization is kind of one of those statistics we look for. And if we look at Malcolm Gladwell's work called The Tipping Point, if we were looking actually for a tipping point for the profession, we have to take all services rendered as that tipping point number. So whether we might agree to it or not agree to it, or say that this is a philosophical principled place, they're doing corrective care. The thing is that utilization number, because of the access points, is probably going to improve. Now, do I think that they are probably creating a huge disservice because they're not imaging properly and taking x-rays, and they're probably not doing a really solid exam with orthopedic checks and muscle testing and making sure that there's integrity within the spine because of imaging, and then creating a plan for this person? I think they're failing at that. I don't know if they'll ever recover. I would say that if they could recover with those models, please put an x-ray unit into these clinics and start doing imaging properly and doing proper exams on people. Because I think that that's really what's going to have to be necessary for the profession to have better understanding from the optics of the consumer. Like you're saying, the consumer comes up from the big cities and they're like, I've never had this done before. Well, if we could create a system where people standardize, we shoot x-ray, we do an exam, we do a health history, we do some orthopedic work, we check out the joints integrity, and then we develop a structure of a plan for you. If that was like the calling card for all practices, we'd have a different fundamental within this profession, and people would have a lot more shaking head moments rather than shaking head moments like this.
Yeah.
And, I do believe that it all starts with the schools. I believe that we need to go back into these colleges. And when people are like watching this interview, if you're somebody that has integrity with philosophy, go back and be a professor at these colleges, become a dean of students, become a VP at these colleges, become a president at these colleges, restore back philosophy into the colleges, start talking about more of what it takes to become science, philosophy, and art rather than just passing tests. Because I think we've done a great job of teaching chiropractors how to pass a board exam, but it doesn't make sure that they have the competency to actually be an adjusting chiropractor. So I think if we're going to correct over the next 4 years, we really need to go back and create like these little cells that create culture of philosophy and adjusting technique. Because what I hear from the people out there that are looking to hire associates, they have to basically rehab these new graduates and teach them philosophy and adjusting. And it usually takes between 4 to 6 months to do that. So if we're ever going to course correct where we're at right now, better exam, better x-ray, better adjusting skills, and better philosophy. And if that's not chiropractic, I don't know what is. So we need to go back to the fundamentals. Fred Schofield taught me, first you crawl, then you walk, then you run. And yes. I think we have to get back to learning how to walk again as a profession, because we're running in different directions and there's no cohesion when it comes to it. And if you put us side by side with like a dental industry, people know that when they have a problem with their mouth, they go in, they open it up, the person looks, they shoot some images, and then they fix it.
Right.
And if we just got that simplified, then the outcomes would be that much greater for the future of this profession.
I would agree with you. I feel like what you just said is kind of what I think I've been perceiving, or what I thought I was perceiving. Mm-hmm. Just there's, like you say, there's no cohesion, and certainly no cohesion around adjusting subluxations.
So it's easier for me to say, go out and be a leader, rather than to be the first one to throw a stone at someone. And I think that that's a position I would hopefully encourage all chiropractors to take. Go be a leader and be a solution to whatever we see as an issue, rather than saying, hey, they're not doing it right. The only way that we correct this is better leadership.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I know that we're about 35 minutes of our show today, and that's kind of the runtime of what we're doing here. I know I didn't talk to you about everything that we had on the table to talk about today, but let's close out with this bear story, because I think it's something that it is the miracle story, and I kind of hooked people at the beginning to stick around to the end. So talk to me about this Cody, Wyoming miracle bear story.
Okay. Well, yeah, for those that don't know, all these mountains around Cody here are just filled with grizzly bears. Probably overpopulated, just a lot of management issues, and but we still love going out in the mountains and doing our thing, the things that we've always done here in Wyoming, and one of those is elk hunting. So my son and I were way up in the mountains, way in the backcountry elk hunting in October. And on October 3rd, he had already gotten his elk, and we were up high in a drainage trying to find an elk for myself. And we hiked up to a stand of timber that we'd seen an elk go into. And we got up on the ridge that was just above the line of timber. And we just figured we'd walk that ridge up, looking into the timber and seeing if we could find an elk. And as we were doing that, we got charged by a grizzly bear that was just inside the timber. She was a problem bear. She had been relocated from a town just a little south of here. She had been killing cattle and I think causing some other problems. And so she got relocated up just outside of Yellowstone about a month before we ran into her. She was probably 30 or 40 miles from where they relocated her, outside of Yellowstone. And just kind of an angry bear. I don't think we surprised her. We had just run, like I was telling you before the show started, we'd run an elk out of that stand of timber about 30 yards below her. And that wasn't quiet. That elk made just crashing timber noises, and my son hit his cow call as soon as the elk started leaving. So unless she was deaf, there's no way we surprised her. And as we approached where she was hanging out in the timber, she just come flying out of there, and she made noise. Thank God she made some noise when she took off. She snapped a real definitive snap of timber right when she took off, I think. And I thought it was an elk. I kind of stepped to my left to expect to see an elk come out onto the ridge. And thank God my son did not think elk. He heard that first snap of timber and he thought it was something bad. And he immediately started drawing his 10 millimeter Glock and drawing it up towards where he was hearing the noise, and then just crashing timber coming right at us. And then about that quick, a grizz head come out from between two trees. The game wardens said he was 4.5 yards from that where she came out of between those two trees. And thankfully he was almost at full draw at that point, and he had one in the chamber. And again, thank God his gun worked perfectly, the ammo worked perfectly, and he worked perfectly. And he started throwing lead and hitting his target. And he hit that bear numerous times, changed its mind, made it turn. And then once he got the bear turned, then he had it. He kept hitting it, and ended up killing it and ending the situation in our favor. So,
not a typical chiropractic miracle story.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, a pretty amazing story that we close out the show with today. Vince, I'm sure people are going to watch us. They're going to say, how do I connect with this guy? If people want to reach out to you, where can we send them to?
My email is V as in my name, K. So VK Chiro as in chiropractor @hotmail.com.
I love it. You have an old Hotmail account. So vkchiro@hotmail.com. Reach out to Dr. Vince. Really appreciate you making time with us today. It's a great episode.
Well, thanks for having me on. And I learned some stuff from you, some really interesting information. Thanks, James.
Yeah, it goes both ways. And if I'm ever up there in the Yellowstone area, I'll shoot you a message.
Please do. I'd love to meet you in person.
Yeah. So I'll close out today like I always do. Reach out to Vince at vkchiro@hotmail.com. And I always tell people you're just one story away. Keep hustling. And thanks for being our guest today.
Thank you.
All right. See you soon, Vince.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.